Hello everyone, this is Dhruv from Edureka and I welcome you all to this session where I will be talking about Azure Import Export service. So without any further ado, let's take a look at today's agenda. We will start this session by first understanding what is Microsoft Azure Import Export. Then we will look at its components and then briefly understand its working. We will then understand the scenarios in which Azure Import Export service can be used. We will also have a look at security considerations and pricing segments of Azure Import Export. Finally, we will then move on to do a practical hands-on implementation of Azure Import Export service and also look at its use cases. So first, let's understand what is Azure Import Export. Azure Import Export provides a way for organizations to export data from Azure storage to an on-premises location. The service offers a secure, reliable, and cost-effective method to export large amounts of data. You can also use Azure Import Export to import data to Azure storage from an on-premises location. However, I recommend that you use an Azure Data Box device when you are in a region where the Azure Data Box family is supported. Importing data by using one of the products in the Azure Data Box family is easier than using Azure Import Export. When you are moving large amounts of data between locations, speed and reliability are fundamental requirements. Even the fastest networks have bandwidth limitations. If you need to transfer tens of terabytes of data between remote sites, the operation could take several days. Additionally, if the transfer fails at some point, you don't want to have to start the whole process again from the beginning, right? So the Azure Import Export service is designed to address these kind of issues only. Now let's understand the components of Azure Import Export. So the first one is the Azure Import Export service. Import Export is an Azure service that's used to migrate large quantities of data between an on-premises location and an Azure storage account. By using the service, you send and receive physical disks that contain your data between your on-premises location and an Azure data center. You ship data that's stored on your own disk drives. These disk drives can be serial ATA, means SATA, or hard drives, HDDs, or solid state drives, means SSDs. The Azure Import or Export service is ideally suited to situations where you must upload or download large amounts of data, but your network backbone doesn't have sufficient capacity or reliability to support large scale transfers. You typically use this service to migrate large amounts of data from on-premise to Azure as a one-time task. Also, you can use it for backing up your data on on-premises in Azure storage. Or you can also use it for recover large amounts of data that you previously stored in Azure storage. And you can use it for distributing data from Azure storage to customer sites. Now, the second component is WA Import Export tool. If you are importing data into Azure storage, your data must be returned to disk in a specific format. Use the WA Import Export drive preparation tool to do this. This tool checks a drive and prepares a journal file that's then used by an import job when data is being imported into Azure. The WA Import Export tool is a command line tool that performs the following tasks such as prepare disk drives to be shipped to the Azure data center. WA Import Export formats the drive and checks it for errors before data is copied to the disk. It also encrypts the data on the drive. It quickly scans the data and determines how many physical drives are required to hold the data being transferred. It creates the journal files that are used for import and export operations. A journal file contains information about the drive serial number, encryption key, and storage account. Each drive you prepare with the Azure Import or Export tool has a single journal file. So there are two versions of this tool. Version 1 supports import or export of data to or from Azure Blob Storage. Version 2 supports import of data into Azure files. So you can download the appropriate version of WA Import Export from the Microsoft Download Center. Remember that WA Import Export tool is compatible only with 64-bit Windows operating systems. So the third component is disk drive. So you can ship solid state drives or hard disk drive to the Azure data center. When creating an import job, you ship disk drives containing your data. When creating an export job, you ship empty drives to the Azure data center. So what else you can do is you can request for a data disk from Azure Portal. So what happens is it will then send you a data bus disk directly, which will be encrypted, and there will be a encrypting key also that will also be sent to you on your address, and from where you can like store the data and send back to the Azure data center. So now that you have understood what Azure Import Export is and also its components. Now let's understand how does Azure Import Export work. So Azure Import Export service is used to securely import large amounts of data to Azure Blob Storage and Azure Files by shipping disk drives to an Azure data center. This service can also be used to transfer data from Azure Blob Storage to disk drives and shipped to your on-premises sites. Data from one or more disk drives can be imported either to Azure Blob Storage or Azure Files. So supply your own disk drives and transfer data with the Azure Import Export service. You can also use data box disk drives supplied by Microsoft. So first let's understand Azure Data Box Disk. If you want to transfer data using disk drives supplied by Microsoft, you can use the Azure Data Box Disk to import data into Azure. Microsoft ships up to 5 encrypted solid state disk drives, means SSDs, with a 40 TB total capacity per order, means 40 terabyte total capacity per order, to your data center through a regional courier. You can quickly configure disk drives, copy data to disk drives over a USB 3.0 connection, and ship the disk drives back to Azure. So you can see here this flow chart how it works. So first you have to order a Azure Data Box disk from Azure Portal, and you will then receive it. You have to fill the data in it, and then you have to return to the Azure Data Center. From there, the process goes on the Azure Data Center. The process will move forward, and all the data from the disk will be provided on cloud storage. So that's how it get copied, and you can see it from your Azure Portal. You can access all your data from Azure Portal through the cloud. Now let's have a look at Azure Storage. So the Azure Storage Platform is Microsoft's cloud storage solution for modern data storage scenarios. Core storage services offer a massively scalable object store for data objects, a file system services for the cloud, a messaging store for reliable messaging, and a NoSQL store. The Azure Storage Platform includes the following data services. So the first one is the Azure Queue service, which is used to store and retrieve messages. Queue messages can be up to 64 KB in size, and a queue can contain millions of messages. Queues are generally used to store lists of messages to be processed asynchronously. Then there is Azure Table Storage, which is a service that stores non-relational structured data, also known as structured NoSQL data in the cloud, providing a key store with a schemaless design. Schemaless design. So then there is blob storage and file storage, which we use it for the purpose of import and export. So Azure Blob Storage is Microsoft's objects storage solution for the cloud. Blob storage is optimized for storing massive amounts of unstructured data. Unstructured data is data that doesn't adhere to a particular data model or definition, such as text or binary data. Then we have Azure Files, means file storage. So Azure Files enables you to set up highly available network file shares that can be accessed by using the standard server message block, means SMB protocol. That means the multiple virtual machines can share the same files with both read and write access. You can also read the files using the REST interface or the storage client libraries. One thing that distinguishes Azure Files from files on a corporate file share is that you can access the files from anywhere in the world using a URL that points to the file and includes a shared access signature, that is SAS token. So you can generate SAS tokens. They allow specific access to a private asset for a specific amount of time. Now let's have an architectural understanding of Azure Import Export. To use Azure Import Export, you create a job that specifies the data that you want to import or export. You then prepare the data by yourself or prefer to request a disk from Azure Data Center to use to transfer the data. For an import job, you write your data to these tasks and ship them to an Azure data center. Microsoft uploads the data for you. For an export job, you prepare a set of blank disks and ship them to an Azure data center. Or you can request a disk from the Azure data center. Means the disk is the same which I have explained before, the Azure data box disk. So Microsoft then copies the data to these disks and ship them back to you. In this scenario, you have decided that using the Azure Import Export service will meet your requirements. Let's understand how to import data to Azure. So before you import data to Azure storage, you must have the following items like an active Azure subscription, minimum of one Azure storage account, a system running a supported version of Windows, and a BitLogger enabled on the Windows system. Then the correct version of the WA Import Export tool, install version 1 to import data to Azure Blob Storage, or version 2 to import to Azure files. Okay, remember these things, these two distinctions. So download this tool from the Microsoft Download Center, and also I will show it to you in a further when we move on to the further process. I will show you it in a demo also how you can download the WA Import Export tool. Also, like an active shipping career account, also you should have like FedEx or DHL for shipping drives to an Azure data center. So you can see this diagram, which summarizes the steps involved to import data. So you have to complete the following steps, like determine data to be imported, number of drives you need, also the destination blob location for your data in Azure storage. Then second step is to request Azure Data Box disk from Azure Data Center. Use the WA Import Export tool to copy data to disk drives. Encrypt the disk drives with BitLocker, or you can prepare disk by yourself. Like that can be prepared by, you can connect each disk to your Windows system and create a single NTFS volume on each disk. Each disk must use a SATA connector. Enable BitLocker on the NTFS volume and then copy the data to the encrypted disk by using a tool like Robocopy. Open a command prompt window, go to the folder where you install the WA Import Export tool, run the following command to retrieve the BitLocker key for the drive. These are the commands you can see. So the first command is manage BD protectors get drive letter. So drive letter is nothing like you have seen your local disk, like local disk C, local disk D, local disk F. So these C, D, F, these are drive letters. So this is the first command you have to give. Then prepare the disk by running the WA import export command. This command can take a significant amount of time to complete depending on the amount of data. So you can see the second command here, which is quite a major one. So you have to follow all the things in it. Like it is showing like this is the default one, WA import export.exe, prepare import. This is default. What will change is in the bracket thing, like you can see journal file name that will be generated when you use the WA import export tool. And also there will be a session number that will be generated, ID session number. So that also you have to put. And then there will be the same drive letter there, like which drive you want to view it on cloud. So that drive you are going to upload, right? So for that, the drive letter you have to give, just like I've explained you, like there's a drive letter for local disk C, then D, then F, all these things, C, D, F are drive letter. Then you have to give the BitLocker key that will also be generated through WA import export tool. And then again, the source directory drive letter you have to give, and destination directory container name you have to give, that will also be there. So then you have to select the blob type, whether it is blob or page blob. Okay. Then the default code, that is skip write and enable content MD5. That is the default thing. Okay, that you don't have to change it. So that's how it has been done. So next step is to create the job. So create an import job by using the Azure portal of the REST API. Provide the following information like name for the job or create a storage account in which to import the data, shipping address of the Azure data center for the storage account, also like the return address where Microsoft should send the drive back to, also a list of drives that contain the data for the job, also BitLocker key used to encrypt the data for each drive. Then use a supported carrier like DHL or FedEx to ship the drives to the Azure data center. The carrier provides a tracking number. You add this tracking number to the import job. Then you have to check the job status from Azure data center. Like there will be certain tasks will be going on in Azure data center, and they will be updating you with the job status. So first is they will receive the disk at the Azure data center. So Microsoft updates the import job to indicate that the disk have arrived. You can track the job status from your import job page in the Azure portal. Then there will be transfer data. So Microsoft copies the data from the disk into the specified storage account. This can take some time depending on the volume of the data and number of disks. There is no SLA for this process, but it should be complete in 7 to 10 days after receipt of the disk. Microsoft updates the status of the job to indicate that the data is being transferred. When the transfer is complete, Microsoft changes the status of the job to indicate that the data is now available in Azure storage. Also, if you would have chosen to send your own disk, then after the data has been uploaded to Azure storage, Microsoft repackages your disk. This job status is updated. Then Microsoft sends the disk back to you using your selected carrier. The job status is changed to indicate that the job is now completed. Now your task is left. That is, you have to receive your encrypted disk from the Azure data center. Then last thing is view data in Azure storage. So verify that the data has been copied to your storage account. Now you need to understand how to create an export job. So you can use the import export service to export data from Azure Blob Storage only. Remember this. Okay. And you can't export data that's stored in Azure files. So you must have the following items to support the export process, like an active Azure subscription and an Azure storage account holding your data in Azure Blob Storage. Okay. Second thing is system running a supported version of Windows. Okay. Then a BitLocker enabled on the Windows system and a WA import export version 1 downloaded and installed from the Microsoft Download Center, an active account with a shipping carrier like FedEx or DHL for shipping drives to an Azure data center, also a set of disks that you can send to an Azure data center, on which to copy the data from Azure storage. Also, the second option, as I've told you, other than sending a disk, that is to request a data box disk from Azure Data Center if it is available in your region. Okay. Now you can see the following diagram, which summarizes the export process. To export data, you complete the following steps. So the first one is determine the data to be exported, number of drives you need, and source blobs or container paths for your data in blob storage. Second thing is request an Azure data box disk from the Azure Data Center, or you can send a disk by yourself to the Azure Data Center in your nearby region, and provide the return address and carrier account number for shipping the drives back to you. The third one is create job. So create an export job by using the Azure Portal or the REST API. Provide the following information like name for the job, a storage account that holds the blobs to export, and blobs in the account that contains the data to export, also the shipping carrier and return shipping information for the disk. Then send your disk to the Azure data center identified by the export job. The data center is assigned based on the location of your storage account. You can check the number of disks required for the export job by using the preview export argument of the WA import export command. You provide the details of your export job as parameters in this command. Then you have to check the job status, means whatever the process is going on in Azure Data Center task. So that will be updated in your job status. The first thing is receive disk. So when the data center receives the disk, Microsoft updates the status of the job to indicate that the disks have arrived. This process is almost like same as import data also. Now the second thing is transfer data. So Microsoft copies the data from Azure blob storage to your disk. So the status of the job is changed to show that data is in the process of being transferred. When the transfer is complete, the job status is updated again. It can take several days to transfer the data to your disk, depending on the size of the export job. Then package disk. So Microsoft prepares the disk for shipping. The drives are encrypted through BitLocker. Fourth is ship. So Microsoft sends the disk back to the return address specified in the export job and updates the status of the job again. Then on your end, you can like receive and unload disk. When you receive the disk, you can mount them and use them locally. The data is encrypted. You can find the BitLocker keys for the each drive with the export job details in the Azure portal. This is how the import data with Azure Import Export and export data with Azure Import Export looks like. This is the architectural understanding of it. I hope you have understood it. Let's see the region availability for it. So the Azure Import Export service supports copying data to and from all Azure storage accounts. You can ship disk drives to one of the listed locations. These are all the supported shipping locations. If your storage account is in Azure location that is not specified here, an alternate shipping location is provided when you create the job. Now that you have understood how the Azure Import Export service works, let's understand when to use Azure Import Export. So the Azure Import and Export service is one of the several options for transferring data in and out of Azure storage. Here now we will explore in greater detail the question of when you should use the Azure Import or Export service and when other tools might be more suitable. So the first one in this is offline transfer of massive data. The Azure Import Export service is an offline solution. It's designed to handle more data than would be feasible to transmit over a network connection. Using the import export service, you take responsibility for preparing and shipping the necessary hardware. Microsoft provides an alternate solution in the form of the Azure DataBox family. The DataBox family uses Microsoft supplied devices to transfer data from your on-premises location into Azure storage. A DataBox device is an proprietary tamper-proof network appliance. You connect to the device to your own internal network to move data to the device. You ship the device back to Microsoft, which then uploads data from the device into Azure storage. The Azure DataBox family is the recommended solution for handling very large import or export jobs when the organization is located in a region where DataBox is supported. It's an easier process than using the import or export service. And the second scenario is online transfer of massive data. So the import or export service doesn't provide an online option. If you need an online method to transfer massive amounts of data, you can use Azure Stack Edge or Azure DataBox Gateway. Azure Stack Edge is a physical network appliance that you install on premises. The device connects to your storage account in the cloud. DataBox Gateway is a virtual network appliance. Both of these products support data transfer from an on-premises location to Azure. Then the third scenario is online transfer of smaller data volumes. If you are looking to import or export more moderate volumes of data to and from Azure Blob Storage, consider using other tools like 𝐴𝐧 or Azure Storage Explorer. 𝐴𝐧 just means Azure Copy. So Azure Copy is a simple but powerful command line tool that lets you copy files to an Azure storage accounts with 𝐂𝐳𝐿_copy. You can like upload, download, and copy files to Azure Blob Storage, or you can also upload, download, and copy files to Azure Files. Or you can copy files between storage accounts, and you can also like copy files between storage accounts from different regions. You can use 𝐂𝐳_copy to transfer data online across a network. To access 𝐂𝐳_copy, you must provide the appropriate Azure credentials to access the storage account or use an SAS, means shared access signature. 𝐂𝐳_copy is the ideal tool for copying small to moderate amounts of data as quickly as possible and with the least cost and effort. For large datasets, network bandwidth may limit to the speed at which you can upload or download data to and from Azure storage. You can create scripts that use 𝐂𝐳_copy. Then there is Azure Storage Explorer, which is a free tool that you can use to connect to Azure storage and view data through a graphical user interface. You can upload and download data held in blobs, files, and tables. You can also examine queues and manipulate queued messages. Storage Explorer is an interactive tool. It isn't suitable for moving more than the smallest amounts of data, and it can't be easily scripted. A version of Azure Storage Explorer is provided in the Azure Portal. You can also use Azure PowerShell and the Azure CLI to upload command line interface to upload and download data. These interfaces are programmatic, enabling you to produce complex scripted solutions that can incorporate transformations, mergers, and filtering as the data is transferred. Then the next we have is security considerations for Azure Import Export. The data on the drive is encrypted using AES 256-bit BitLocker drive encryption. This encryption protects your data while it is in transit. For import jobs, drives are encrypted in two ways. First, specify the option when using the dataset file while running the WA import export tool during live preparation. Then second, enable BitLocker encryption manually on the drive. Specify the encryption key in the drive set when running the WA import export tool command line during drive preparation. The BitLocker encryption key can be further protected by using an external key protector, also known as the Microsoft Managed Key or a customer managed key. For export jobs, after your data is copied to the drives, the service encrypts the drive using BitLocker before shipping it back to you. The encryption key is provided to you via the Azure portal. The drive needs to be unlocked using the WA import export tool using the key. Then the next is pricing segments. So there are four pricing segments. First one is a drive handling fee. So there is a drive handling fee for each drive processed as part of your import or export job. So you can see the pricing options for drive handling fee as it is shown here, $80 flat fee per storage device handled. So this is how it looks like, and return shipping fee of devices also that we will talk about the next one. So the next one is shipping cost. When you ship drives to Azure, you pay the shipping cost to the shipping carrier. When Microsoft returns the drives to you, the shipping cost is charged to the carrier account which you provided at the time of the job creation. And the third one is transaction cost. So standard storage transactions charges apply during import as well as export of data. So standard egress charges are also applicable along with storage transaction charges when data is exported from Azure storage. So you can see here I've chosen the currency US dollar. So these are the pricing options for it for data transfer. Then for inter-region, there are different charges, and for intercontinental data transfer also there are different charges. Then we have for internet egress routed via Microsoft Premium Global Network and internet egress routed via routing preferences transit ISP network. There are different prices with different plans of certain specific amount of data per month. Okay, so you can see the different prices here. Then we have the prices for data box disk cost. As I've explained you, it is very important. Like we prefer to request it from Azure data centers. So Azure cost, there is certain price for it. So which we have to pay when we request it from Azure data center. So these are the prices you can see. Like for East US region, because there are certain different prices for different regions. So East US and dollar currency you can see like service fee is $250 and extra day fee is $15. So different kinds of prices are there. I hope you have understood this. So this is just for data box. Then there are different prices for data box disk also, data box heavy also, and data box gateway also. Now that you have a theoretical and architectural understanding of Azure Import Export service, let's now see a practical implementation of it by trying our hands on Azure Portal. So you can simply go to Azure Portal. This is how the Azure Portal looks like. So first step is let's request for a data box. As I have told you that you have to request a data box. If you are not going to send your own disk, you can request a data box from Microsoft and it will send you to your address, whichever address you provide. Okay. So this is how the Microsoft Azure Portal looks like. If you don't have your account on Microsoft Azure, create one. It's a very good platform to have your account on. It's a 12-month free trial we'll get through it, and also there will be a 14,500 INR credit if you are in India. So of course in INR there might be different plans in US or different other countries. Okay, so do make your account. Okay, first let's understand how to request Azure Data Box disk, because as I have explained you, if you are not going to send your own disk something, so you can actually request an Azure Data Box from the nearby region of yours. Okay, so let's go to Azure Data Box. Just type data box. Yeah, so you can create from here, then import to a transfer type, import to Azure, choose import to Azure, then subscription, free trial, resource group, like I have Edureka demo. If you don't have one, create one resource group, then select region. I can choose India, destination Azure region, West India. Remember I have told you the availability regions, so these are the availability regions of data box also. Okay, so you can just apply from here. But as I have a free trial account, after this step you cannot actually move forward. If you have a free trial account, you need to purchase and certain rights for it. That's why it is showing like 40 TB, 100 TB, 1000 TB, 1 TB, this is like the sending your own disk. That's a different thing. But here you can see different plans are there. I have a free trial, that's why it's a limited access, so I cannot order it from here. So that's how you can just request for Azure Data Box. Let's start with import export service. So you can just go to export jobs. You create the job from here. It will show if there is already a job. So there's no job yet. So you can create from here. What you have to do it from here is resource group, free trial. You choose the resource group, like mine is a Edureka demo. Name we can give import demo, right? So import to Azure, choose import or export, whichever you want to do. Right now we are going with import, so we are choosing the import one. So next, job details. So remember I have explained there's this WA import export tool that will generate the general file if you select the disk. So you can go it from here. Yeah. So here service devices shop. Yeah. So here it is. You can download it from here. It will get downloaded and you can extract and run the application in your system and download it. So let's assume we have downloaded the journal file. Okay, now let's select the destination Azure region. So what we can do is, yeah, our region is West India, right? West India we can choose. Storage account we can choose. Like I don't have any storage account right now, so what I can do is I can create a storage account. Go to portal again. Storage accounts we can choose from here. So create a storage account. Yeah, so you can choose the resource group from here, and then you can give a name to a storage account. So let's give import export store, and then region we can select. I'll choose India. There is given West India, right? So performance, everything is okay, not a problem. Next, advanced, just review and create after this. That's it. Create. So it is getting deployed. So yeah, it's been created. You can go to Edureka demo source. Will be showing here. What's the name of it? Import export. Or you can refresh it. If it's not showing, you can refresh it once. It will show them. Import export storage accounts. There again, refresh. Yeah, now it is there. Storage account. Import export store, right? Open it from here. This is how everything information is given. But that's it. You just have to create that. There's no other use of it. So you can just give the name here now. Import export store. We can refresh it once. If it's not showing right now. You can again choose the Edureka demo now. Import demo we can give. Import into Azure. Next, job details. Then as I explained you for this, upload journal files and everything. Okay, download this from WA Import Export tool, and then create a journal file by selecting the disk you want to get it uploaded into. You want to import into the Azure cloud, right? So now we choose the Azure region. So we can choose the region West India. Storage account, import export store. It is there, right? So next shipping. Okay, then we can go to shipping, and you can give the address also, and also the your address also, like if you're going to send your disk. So if you select that from Azure data box now, if you select the option of sending your disk, then they will provide you an address where you can send to the Microsoft. That address will be given, and you have to give your address also so that they can return back the disk. And also if you're choosing the data box option, then you just have to give your address. They will they will send you the disk by themselves, and then you have to like return it back to them online. Okay, that's it. Then text, then review create, and just create it. Right now we haven't created a journal file, so it will not move forward. So these are the steps. You can see like I have noted it here. Like you have to, first step is to determine the data, then number of drives required, and blob location. That is the first thing you will do. And the second is to download the W import export tool and create a journal file. Then you have to create import export job, that is as it is shown here. Then you have to ship drives to the provided address. Okay, whatever address is provided, you have to ship them if you are sending your own disk. Otherwise, it's a different step. So then fifth one is to drives are processed at Azure data center. It will be processed there, and it will be like whatever process is going on, it will be updated in the same import export job you are creating here, right? The import job you're creating here. Then drives are shipped back to you again if you have sent your own drive. Now, what's different in export job? The only thing different in the export job is you don't have to use the import export tool to encrypt or the BitLocker, right? For encrypting the data and everything. But what the W import export tool is used. So you can just go to basics again. Instead of this, we can choose export from Azure. We can give it export demo. Everything is same. Next job details. Then what you have to do is right now I haven't chosen anyone, so I can just choose export all. If you want to choose a specific something, you can choose by yourself. Okay. Then next shipping, same, everything shipping and everything is given. Then you can just give all this information, and this all the steps are same. Then you can just go to text and review create and just complete. That's it. I hope you have understood this. It's not that difficult. It's actually quite an easy process. Now let's understand some of the use cases for Azure Import Export service. So consider using Azure Import or Export service when uploading or downloading data over the network is too slow, or getting additional network bandwidth is cost prohibitive. Use this service in the following scenarios. Like first use case is data migration to the cloud. So move large amounts of data to Azure quickly and cost effectively. That's very simple in that. And second thing it provides is cloud backup. So take backups of your on-premises data to store in the Azure storage. And last one is data recovery. So you can recover large amounts of data stored in storage and have it delivered to your on-premises location. With this, we come to the end of today's session of Azure Import Export service. I hope you had a great time learning and understanding about it. And if you have any queries, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Until next time, thank you.